Today we're gonna talk about the newest 6-star Water Aurorian, the Spectre Summoner, Bethel. And before I continue with her introduction, let me play you this maybe familiar to you clip. That's also why I'm just going to assume that she might also be a water attribute detonator. That's right, Sherlock No striked once again. That's 3 out of 3 on my predictions so far. But let's get back to our horned beauty. Because she's not only the adopted daughter of the notorious leader of Umbreton, Istvan, but also our newest 6-star water detonator. Wait a moment. Water? 6-star? Beth? L? Well, we did ask Tour Dog for Beth, and I guess they're telling us that we already have Beth at home. But, aside from her being the only Beth we have access to right now, how does she actually compare to her competition? Because with her being part of the water element and also being in the detonator class, she has to face off against titans like Sharona and also Regal. And that's why I'm here. Because I'm now going to present and analyze everything she has in store for us, so that you, yes, you, have an easier time to decide if she is really worth your precious Lou member and special flares. So, let's begin our inspection with her active skill. Tyndall's Fury. This skill lets you select one tile and then deals 120% damage to it in a 5-tile cross shape. And you probably think to yourself right now, wait, what? A 1-turn cooldown damage skill? That's it? Yes and no, as we do have to take a look at her equipment to make sense out of this obviously quite lackluster skill. So, let's get right into her equipment. Frankel's Rage. This equip summons 1 Frankel to the tile selected by your active skill, and this little guy packs quite the punch, as every time you use any active skill, yes, that means not only buffs, he unleashes a roar dealing up to 105% damage to all enemies within one surrounding cluster. But if there's only one foe in his range, he uses a Sundering Claw instead, that deals 50% more damage than a simple roar. And Frankels are pretty antisocial, which means that they disappear when an enemy comes into contact with them. But he doesn't go without leaving a mark, as they do unleash one last roar when disappearing. Now everything concerning her active skill makes a little bit more sense, doesn't it? However, one thing you do have to keep in mind is that you can only have up to 2 Frankels up at the same time, meaning that this is basically the parent simulator, aka the older one disappears when you use Bethel's active skill while already having 2 of them on the field. And another important thing to remember is that you obviously can't target an occupied tile with this, as the selected spot needs to be free for Frank, FFF. And yes, I'm going to call them Frank, because it's funnier, shorter and also easier to say. But the Bethel Act Frank action doesn't stop here, because I heard there's some more juicy stuff hidden, so let's move on to her chain combo. Spectral Gift. This chain deals 150% damage to 12 tiles in a diamond shape at a chain trigger requirement of 4, 165% to 16 tiles in a radial shape at 9, and last but not least, 175% damage to 2 surrounding clusters at a 12+ chain. But as you could already see on the chain's description, that's actually not everything her chains do, because they also allow your very cute pets, if they're in the range of Beth's chain, to teleport to and attack their nearest enemy. Nothing personal, kid. Which is simply amazing. With now already 2 ways to trigger our Franks, it's apparent that they can deal quite the damage, making it very understandable that this does start at a trigger requirement of 4. And the chain damage going up to 175% also nicely supports her already decent attack stat. Speaking of supporting someone, now that we've almost covered all of Beth's skill set, I can already confidently say that this is not only pretty unique, but also very enjoyable. Like doing your taxes or reading a book about the invisible hand and its effects on the economy. Things normal young adults like Beth do these days. They don't? Weird. Anyway, let's just continue our journey by Breaking news! I have to disrupt our normal scheduled program for the first iteration of our brand new segment, Frank Facts. Like the name already suggests, this part of the review solely focuses on our favorite little helpers, Frank and Frank. Our first Frank fact is something that was probably the biggest concern regarding Beth's Frankles. Can you move onto tiles they occupy? And yes, you thankfully can. The second Frank fact is that Frankles are treated like objects, in-game of course. Which means that your Aurorians will trigger their chain combos if a Frank is in their range, similar to for example rocks. And that's actually quite interesting, as this means that you can kind of artificially increase your attack range through them, by just bonking them real good, which forces your dear Franks to jump onto the nearest enemy in their range. Frank fact numero 3 is more of a reminder that Franks only hit every enemy once, meaning he doesn't deal damage multiple times to multi-tile foes. Frank fact number 4 Frank fact 5 is that you can stack 2 Franks on top of each other. Kinky. Frank fact 6 is that the attack that triggers on Beth's chain combo also works with double chain supports. Frank fact 6.
It's time to stop.
And our already last Frank fact is very specific, as it only matters for the new Underground Battles game mode in our currently running event. Because Franks also trigger when an enemy Aurorian uses a skill. I guess you could say, they got franked.
Ha! Daddy!
And with that, this segment is now over, and all of these fascinating facts also convinced me that friendship ended with Beth because Beth is now my best friend, at least until December. And now it's finally time to see what trait offers Bethel has in store for us with her breakthroughs. And as usual, we're only going to look at breakthrough 3 and 6, because those are the ones that actually matter for 6-star Aurorians. Bethel's BT3 increases her active skill damage by 50%, bringing it now to a solid number of 170%. And while I usually don't really like these kinds of BTs, in her case it's actually not too bad, as her skill CD is only 1 turn, and we can't forget that this skill can hit up to 4 tiles, meaning one skill usage can potentially gain up to 200% more damage with this. But would I recommend rolling for this? Not really. Your main damage is still coming from Frank and Co. Getting more than 1 or 2 hits with this can be hard, and you can't even hit multi-tile enemies multiple times with this, as the selected tile needs to be empty. Or you know who. Which does mean that this is overall not that worth to get. Her max breakthrough, however, is a real house of an upgrade, because it allows you to use her active skill 1 more time after entering Aurora time, which is actually quite huge, as this means that you can have 2 Franks out on turn 1, making her even better for burst-oriented teams. But this is max BT, so yeah, just don't. Except if you have the cash, money, resources, and also enough Bethel dedication. Now that we're finally done, let's bring this to an end. All in all, Bethel is basically the opposite of the recently released 6-star Forest Sniper, Paloma. And if you're about to ask me, where did that come from? Lean back and let me explain. While Paloma is a sniper that has Detonator-like abilities with her active skill, Bethel is a Detonator that has sniper-like capabilities with the help of Frank, and obviously we also can't forget about Frank. These two are basically 2 small, limited-range snipers that also have their own chains that trigger whenever you use an active skill or use Bethel's chain combo while they're in range. Which means that Beth does actually have quite a different use scenario than the other DPS Aurorians in the Water attribute, Sharona and Regal. While Sharona offers some decent damage and nice utility with her global teleport, Regal is there to delete multi-tile enemies, and Bethel has the potential to be the worst enemy of single-tile enemies, and also crowds alike. Meaning that she doesn't really clash with them, but rather coexists peacefully. But I do have to say that the amount of actual planning needed to properly and efficiently make the most out of Beth and her Franks is quite huge. making her perfect for players looking for a challenging to use Aurorian that also has a big enough payoff. And all of this does mean that Bethel is a pretty strong Aurorian, with her own separate niche of either dealing with multiple enemies at once or just one big single tile one, but also requires a lot of thinking to make the most out of her. Now, let's get to the most important question in the room. Is she worth rolling for? And this is not that easy of a question. If you already have enough good water detonators and also your fair share of snipers that don't start with C and end with Onely, and you're happy with them, probably not. But if you either want a jack-of-all-trades detonator that can deal with both single and multi-tile foes alike, and has the potential to bully all single-tile fire bosses out of existence, or don't think that your current sniper or detonator roster is good enough, then hell yeah, definitely. She's quite challenging and fun to play, but keep in mind that she can feel a bit lacking if not used properly. And as usual, don't forget that if you really like her design, VA and co, just go for her. Because in the end, that's the only thing that actually matters. What's your opinion on our enslaver of ranks, Bethel? Are you going to roll for her? Or is this just another skip for you? If you disagree with anything or just have something to share, just comment down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. That was all from me, have a nice day, and see you next time.